Well, welcome to the show, Federal Member for McPherson, Leon Rebello.
Thank you very much, Colin. It's great to be back.
Well, it's been a month. There's been a lot going on, well, overseas as well as locally, as well as federally. What have you been up to?
Well, in the last month, since I was last here, we had a sitting fortnight in Canberra, so it was my third and fourth sitting weeks as the member for McPherson, and so we were in Canberra. We had a number of different pieces of legislation that came up that we spoke to, but also we started the committee work, which is something that perhaps a lot of listeners are not aware of, but members of federal parliament are also involved in committees. And so I'm on the Education Committee, I'm on the Petitions Committee, I'm on the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee, and there's a few others as well. So we've started to have those meetings. There were some absolutely fascinating meetings that we had. I was just speaking to you before about how we met with an Israeli hostage.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd love you to go into that one.
Well, it was really interesting. So a gentleman by the name of Eli Sharabi, who was released in February this year, and he was an Israeli hostage that was held hostage by Hamas operatives, and he spoke to us with incredible courage, and he went through the experience of having his wife and his two daughters murdered, in addition to his brother and others that he knew as well. And so he spoke about the experiences, he spoke about what he went through in terms of what happened on the 7th of October 2023, but also what happened to our, to the foreign aid, and the fact that, Hamas operatives were consuming it, and he was starved. He went from over 70 kilos to 40, I think it was 44 kilos.
Wow.
Over the time that he was there. So it was very interesting to hear that first-hand experience, and like I said before, incredible courage. So there have been those things that have been happening, those meetings, and the progression of what's happening in Canberra, but then there's also a lot that's happening on the local front. I've maintained incredible involvement in our community on the southern Gold Coast. This morning I was at Tally Creek, and we had a fantastic reception there, just as at one of my listening posts. So we had a lot of people coming past to share with me their thoughts about what's happening, and their ideas for the future as well. We've had a number of events with schools, with community groups. Actually, something that I really enjoyed was I reached out to a number of the high schools. In fact, we reached out to all high schools in McPherson that have year 12 students, and invited the school captains to come in to my office so that we could have a chat about politics, about what I do, but also, I've been a big fan of wanting to increase civics education. So we pulled out the whiteboard and we went through all these different issues and we quizzed them on the responsibilities of the state, the federal and the council. And so that was very interesting. And we had posters up about former prime ministers and posters up about how the House of Reps works. And there was a lot of engagement. So I've got a lot of confidence in the next generation.
Oh, I'd love to hear how that went, but we've only got half an hour. Look, I'll take the opportunity. This is a talkback program. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got a question for Leon Rebello, federal member for McPherson, it could be federally related, it could be McPherson related, it could just be what's bugging you at this point in time with regard to what's going on in the world. Give us a call. 0755 208888 is the number to do that. Do not leave it to the end of the program. We'd love to hear from you now. Well, sounds like you've had a busy month, but there's also some topics that we'd like to talk about. Number one, how about we start with the government transparency and Labor's freedom of information clampdown? Yeah,
so Colin, this is something that is quite concerning, to say the least. So what we've seen is we've had a government that's promised that there's going to be transparency, and we've seen the opposite. So they're in effect governing in the shadows. And I say that because FOI legislation, which is something that many people will be familiar with, it's the opportunity for members of the public to put forward questions to their government, which is a responsibility for government to respond to. Now, what Labor is proposing is that Australians will now have to pay pay $60, up to $60 in order to access that information. And that's money that you have to pay just to ask what the government is doing in your name. But this, Colin, this is part of a broader issue that we're seeing. So obviously the Albanese government had quite a significant mandate in the House of Representatives in that they won a lot of seats. However, that's emboldened them, and it's now turned into a sense of arrogance, because what we've seen, and this is a consistent theme of a lack of integrity and a lack of transparency, is they've reduced the amount of formal questions that are asked of them in question time, and they've also reduced the amount of staff that are available to the opposition shadow ministers, which means that on all accounts, it seems to be an effort to reduce accountability, and it's just very anti-democratic.
Look, it's a shame that it can be taken the way of, well, we can do what we want, we've got a mandate. The issue is that you've got to keep him at the forefront of your mind what the original preface is. You're in there because you are managing the country on the people's behalf, our behalf. And that's first and foremost. If we don't agree with you or we're unhappy about it, we should have the right to query you.
Absolutely. And that's why, it's exactly that logic that motivates me. And that's why, I have my contact details public, but I also continue to do listening posts at beaches. I continue to do, things such as this where people can call up and speak to me and ask me questions, because we can never forget as elected representatives the people that put us there.
Well, this is a favourite of mine. Well, it's become a favourite of mine because I wasn't quite aware of it until you walked in this morning. Spare bedroom tax.
It's honestly a joke, but it's not a joke, and that's what's concerning. So what we saw, the government held their productivity roundtable, their economic roundtable recently, and one of the things that was raised in that, in the midst of a conversation about how do we fix the housing crisis, was let's tax Australians on their spare bedrooms. Now, that's absolutely unacceptable and unconscionable from my perspective. Now, the Prime Minister and the Treasurer had so many opportunities to rule it out, and we, as the coalition, put forward to them that they, can they rule out that they will impose a tax on hardworking Australians' spare bedrooms, and they were unable to do so. And the fact that they were unable to do so, I think all Australians should be quite concerned. Now, what does it mean? I mean, practically, we live on the southern Gold Coast. It's such a holiday destination, and we have a lot of people here who are retirees and who may have a spare bedroom for their grandkids to come and visit.
Yes.
They will be taxed under this proposal. We have a lot of people who, young families who are wanting to save a room while they're waiting for the arrival of their firstborn. Those bedrooms are up for grabs. So there are lots of issues, but ultimately the message is that Australians are being punished for the government's failure to actually deliver on housing. The government spent over $43 billion on housing, and now they haven't built the homes that are needed, and now they're trying to come into our homes to try and tax us, it seems, for their incompetence.
Look, I think there's a fundamental issue here, and the fundamental issue is, how do you measure a spare bedroom?
That's right. Exactly. And I think, I really genuinely hope this was a thought bubble and that was it. But the fact that the government hasn't been able to rule this out is concerning, and that's what they need to do. They need to come out and rule this out, because it's Australia. It just does not pass the Australian pub test.
I just remember as a child, and we spoke about this off air, that driving around Sydney, I remember seeing some windows that look like windows, but there's bricks all the way through them. What happened there? I asked my father at the time, and he said to me, well, once upon a time someone had the smart idea of implementing a window tax, so people just bricked them up. So how does a spare bedroom become, it just became a home office? Oh, no, maybe it's another lounge room.
But as far as I'm concerned, we all work hard. Australians work hard, they save up, they buy their houses, and you should have domain over your place. It's not up for the government to come and tell you what to do.
Look, there's plenty of other angles or things to pick on, and we've got our first caller. We might start there. It is a very good morning to Anna. Anna, ask your question of Leon.
Oh, good morning, Colin, and good morning, Leon. I was just about to leave, actually, and go to the station to ask some questions for my friend who's visiting here soon from the UK, but I thought, well, maybe I could save myself some time and speak to Leon. So I've got a bit of an echo on the phone as well, so it's putting me off.
Have you got your radio on in the
background?
Anna, or not?
No, not in this room, but I can hear myself on the phone that I'm speaking into.
Sorry to hear
anyway,
that. Yeah.
just that. Oh, that's okay. Anyway, so I'll just get myself together. Right, I have a very good friend visiting from the UK next month. And this time, she's been before, and this time she's bringing her husband and her son. Now, she herself is disabled, slightly disabled, in that she's legally blind, but she has a disabled son who's autistic. He's a grown man now. He's 40. And they're doing this trip for his birthday. He gets to choose his birthday every year, and he's chosen to come to Australia.
Wow.
So they're doing it. Yeah. So in England, they have companion cards and things like that, which they can use for entry or, into touristy places like Disneyland, Paris, or and train rides and things like that. So I was just off to the station to ask about, is there anything that people from Commonwealth countries maybe, or, UK, can do on a similar basis when they come with their autistic children, or, for example. Is there a companion card that they can get so that they don't have to pay to go on rides and things like that? That's how it works in the UK.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you very much, Anna, for that question. I'm not aware of any sort of arrangement with Commonwealth countries for that. But what I'm happy to do is if you do contact the station, or you're welcome to contact my office as well, we can look into it for you, because it may also depend on where they're wanting to go. So there are a number of, for example, community organisations, but also if they're going to particular venues or theme parks or zoos or whatever, that might have arrangements themselves. So we're happy if you want to reach out either to the station or to my office, we can look into that for you and provide you with an answer.
Okay. So would it be better to go through 4CRB or just ring your office?
Just give the office a call. If you don't have the number, Anna, you can call back call the station and we'll get it for you. How's that sound?
All right. Okay, that's lovely, thanks. Because I actually had it on my list. Yeah. It says contact your local MP, and then the notice came up that you were going to be on, so I thought, well, I might as well ask you.
Yeah, well, look, I'm more than happy. My details are public, but my number is 5580 9111, and so you're welcome to call my office.
All right, thanks. I'll do either or. Thank you very much for your help.
A pleasure.
Thank you, Anna. If you've got a question for Leon Rebello, you can do exactly what Anna did. Give us a call right now. 0755 208888 is the number, and we'd love to hear from you before the end of the show, about 10 minutes away. All right, there's been a lot of marching going on around the country in any number of different arenas. I thought we'd gather your thoughts.
Yes, Colin, there's been a lot of media recently about some of the recent marches that have happened, and I'd say I've been very clear about my position on this with a number of different media outlets that have asked. It's very unfortunate that some of those marches were hijacked by people who should have known better and by neo-Nazis and such, and I'm more than happy to absolutely condemn them because there is no place for that sort of racism in Australia. However, I will also say that there were thousands of people who marched out of genuine concern about where this country is going. And that concern stemmed around mass migration. It stemmed around I guess problems with managing migration and the fact that the government doesn't appear to have a plan for how they're going to manage migration. So while, yes, like I said, I condemn the neo-Nazis that got involved, there are thousands of people who were there for genuine reasons and, deserve to be heard.
Look, migration is always a big topic, especially now that we have a housing issue and rental issues and any number of issues that stem from the fact that there's not enough houses to accommodate people. So let's touch on that for a minute. We can go to the extreme and turn it completely off, can't we? But the issue is, what effect does that actually have? There's industry effects. There's all sorts of other things, yes?
Absolutely. There are so many effects in turning off migration. And I've been very public in saying that Australia needs to reassess our migration numbers. And, I previously said we do need to reduce our migration to make sure that it's sustainable, because it not only does it do a disservice to us as a community here who have the buckling infrastructure, who have to deal with, social cohesion issues at times, but it also does a disservice to the people that we're bringing into Australia, because there's no point bringing people in if we don't have houses for them,
Sure.
if we don't have the infrastructure for them. During the campaign, I spoke to a number of small businesses around the southern Gold Coast, and a number of our hotels, a number of our restaurants, our bars. These are locals who run these.
Yes.
But if you take out the migrants, they're actually not able to staff those venues. So we need to make sure when we do put together our migration program that we're actually taking into account the migrants that are needed and the industries that are needed. Skilled migration should always be our focus. We need to have skilled migrants, but we need to consider the number of skilled migrants and the number of migrants more broadly, and we need to make sure that we're consulting with the various industries so that we're not deserting our own locals and their needs as well.
Look, it's like anything else. If we haven't got the infrastructure, well, we need to consider something around that. If we need migrants to fill these components, well, if we haven't got houses for them, what are they going to do? Just set up camp. That's the issue. There's not enough houses for the rest of us. We do need to solve that problem.
That's right. And the short-term vision that this government has outlined is not what this country needs. We need a long-term approach to housing. And it's going to be a combination of reducing the amount of regulation, or rather deregulating the building industry, increasing our supply in the short term, but also having a long-term approach for things such as looking at building new cities and investing in new cities, because that's the only way we're going to it's the only way we're going to actually deal with a larger Australia.
Yes.
Did you know, Colin, that since the Second World War, the Gold Coast is the only new sizable city that has been built in this country?
Yes, we touched on this last time, and it was very interesting. It's one of the bigger conversations that are going on around the building at the moment. And in between you visiting last time and me and you visiting this time, I flew to Sydney. Now, even just flying up and down the eastern seaboard, there is plenty of land to utilise. Now we move inland, and it just comes down to infrastructure, the need to be there, and also the jobs, so that you can go, hey, there's a great opportunity here for me to actually get ahead.
That's right. And that's where the government has a role, where the government can be the one that actually leads in that space, that puts in the infrastructure, that makes sure we use our tax system to incentivise business to set up jobs there in headquarters. And that's where I see the focus of our housing vision should be, in addition to making sure that we're increasing supply and deregulating the building industry.
So help me understand how that works. Normally there's a gold rush and a town builds up around it, or there's an industry decides to move in, or there's a mine and so forth, and the town builds around it. You're saying that we need to put in extra towns, industry needs. Is this a government incentive? Is this a developer-based incentive? What are your thoughts around that?
It's both. So it starts with developers will, like businesses, they will go where there's a financial profit,
Sure,
where there's an opportunity. And so the government needs to generate a need for an opportunity, or generate that opportunity. And so I wouldn't suggest starting cities from scratch, right? I think there are a lot of risks with that, but Australia is very fortunate to have some fantastic towns that are located in brilliant geographical parts of this country, and I've always said that the southern Gold Coast is my favourite, and we have among the most pristine natural environments in the world, but there are also other parts of Australia that are home to such great environments and would be fantastic cities. And there's an opportunity for government to say, okay, let's look at case study cities. Let's look at places that are established, such as Newcastle, or we look at places like Townsville or others, but are not perhaps operating at their potential. And what would they need? Government should ask itself, what would they need in order to cater for a larger population? So you take Newcastle, for example. You want to make sure you've got the transport connectivity. Let's make sure the highways are up to scratch. Let's make sure the heavy rail's up to scratch. If we need to, put an underground in, and it will be, those questions will be different for each city we look at. Then, okay, how do we actually attract people to come here? And we can look at our tax system. Countries in the Middle East do that all the time. Some of the Asian countries do it as well.
And that's a great story, because what are other countries doing? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's some great stories from overseas in any number of areas that mean that all we need to do is Australianise them and go, this is going to be good for us.
Exactly, and we need to start thinking long term and not election cycle to election cycle in Australia.
There we go. We're getting towards the end of the program. You do have a chance to get in and ask a question of Leon Rebello. All you need to do is give us a call right now, 0755 208888. Well, we're going to round up now with community awards. There's that's a great little thing. It's been something that you're probably new to being in the seat, but tell us all about it.
We are so lucky on the Gold Coast to have such a vibrant volunteer culture, and that leads to us having the community that we have. And I think as the federal member of parliament, when I go to Canberra, I'm very proud of the people that I represent and the community I represent, in large part because of the sense of giving that we have, the sense of volunteering that we have. And it was only fitting for me to establish the inaugural McPherson Honours, which is an opportunity for us as a city and as an electorate to come together and say thank you to those who give so much to our community, whether that's individuals, whether that's small businesses, whether that's organisations. And so we have, I have put on my social media, we've sent it out in emails, that the McPherson Honours will have a number of different categories. We have the Small Business of the Year, Service Clubs of the Year for the Rotary Clubs and the like, Surf Lifesavers of the Year. But we've also added some more broader categories. We have the Environmental Champions, we have the Community Safety Award, I'm thinking Neighbourhood Watchers, I'm thinking Police Officers, the Spirit of McPherson Award. There's a whole number of different categories. And I'm really asking our community to think about those individuals. They could be your colleagues, they could be the people who, work at your schools, who you feel would deserve to be recognised. And it will all culminate in a ceremony at the Rebello Auditorium on the 17th of October. But nominations are open now until Monday the 6th of October. And so please get online, nominate. If you have any questions, you're welcome to contact my office. But please nominate, and it will be a night where the community can come together and celebrate all that we are and congratulate and thank those people who have made us all that we are and will continue to make the Southern Gold Coast the place that it is.
That is a fantastic little incentive. I love hearing that we're recognising all those wonderful people who donate their time, their love, their intensity to a cause or a charitable not-for-profit. And it does make all the difference knowing how many volunteers are involved with 4CRB and how much we appreciate everything they do. They enjoy it, and it's nice to hear that they can be rewarded for it. All right, we have another caller, and we'll just sneak it in. I think it's Nagal, Forgive me if I've got that one wrong. Good morning, Nagal. Ask your question of Leon. Did I get your name right?
Oh, well, you can say Nigel. It's Nigel.
Nigel, my apologies, mate. I think it was just done in lowercase and I couldn't quite read it.
That's all right.
Ask your question.
Okay. This is probably a big ticket item that basically I just wondered what our member for Parliament feels about I've heard a figure of 80,000 children a year are aborted. Like, it's the abortion issue that is a really big ticket item. And, we're saying that we need immigration, but we're just killing our own babies, So it's a very concerning thing, especially the point that I want to bring up is the recent changes in the last few years that allow people to abort their children up to birth in Queensland and in all states of Australia. It's a terrible thing. I just wondered what our members' position on this is.
Well, thank you very much for the question, Nigel, and it is an issue that is raised with me from time to time. I would start by saying that it's actually, as your federal member, I have my personal views about it. Abortion is one of those things that is regulated at a state level, so I am limited in what I can do at a federal level. I would say, however, that I am concerned about the time frame of abortion, and I think you're absolutely right in talking about the stage at which it occurs, and I think that is a conversation that different states need to have, because we do have different rules in different states in Australia, and so I think you're right in having that conversation. I would say as well. I think it was
if I could. Just to interject.
Sure.
Just to interject. Are you aware that I think it's Gallagher, the Labor minister in charge, is allowing people that do abort their babies, they get the full $4,000, baby bonus for aborting their child. Could you bring that matter up? That would be helpful, because other senators are concerned about that. And as a taxpayer, I don't want my money, tax dollars, to go towards someone who's, it seems unfair. And
well, Nigel, look, I'm happy to take that concern for you.
Nigel, I'd also encourage you to bring that one up with Ray Stevens when we have him in. I'm not sure when he's next in, but if you have a look on our website, that will tell you absolutely. He's usually in once a month. It is a state issue, and that it would be the best to get those answers directly from him.
Yes, sure. But that's the point, is that the Commonwealth baby bonus is a Commonwealth granted thing, and that's being paid to people that abort their babies, which is it's sad, but it's not right.
Yeah, and Nigel, this is one of those things, and I've just finished a campaign where I've spoken to thousands of Australians. This is one of those things where people have differences of opinion on, and I think, Tony Abbott, who was a former Prime Minister, once spoke about how he thought abortions needed to be rare, legal and safe, and I think there is, there are differences of opinion on this around the community, but I will take your concern, to my colleagues in Canberra.
Thank you very much for your question, Nigel. We're backing up against the local news. Leon, thank you very much for your time this morning. We do have another caller on the line. Are you able to take that before you run away?
Sure, of course.
We'll do that off air. All right. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Leon Rebello, federal member for McPherson.
Pleasure.